Hello, everybody.
All right, calling case number 23-01501, People versus Amber Weston.
Good morning, Your Honor. Mario Brown, P.B. Health and Probation Department.
Ms. Weston, if you can state your name, please.
Amber Weston.
All right, today's a time set for review. Mr. Marana.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Weston does report to the Probation Department as directed. She has completed all hours of community service work, has had no known assault or threatening, intimidating contact, no known possession of any firearms or dangerous weapons. Is still remains gainfully employed and is currently still submitting to EGG screens 2 times per month, all screens being on time and negative. The only issue, Your Honor, I did contact Miss Hutchins. Miss Weston is attending counseling through Kayla Hutchins, the mental health counselor of the outpatient care, and she indicated to me that there hasn't been a session since September, and it hasn't been solely because of Miss Weston not showing up. It appears that there has been some conflict with Miss Weston and Miss Hutchinson. It looks like they've had appointments, but each have had to cancel kind of going forward. And Miss Hutchins, when I was on the phone with her last, did indicate to me that the last session, Miss Weston was sick and was unable to appear for. So I did reach out to Miss Hutchins in December, and she did indicate that she had been meeting with Amber, but unfortunately due to the holidays and busy schedules, have been meeting recently. So I did call Miss Hutchinson and kind of get all that other backstory information related to. So she is in compliance with the bulk of her probation order, but there unfortunately has not been a meeting with her counselor since September.
For 3 months? For 3 months?
Yes.
So if I recall correctly, I originally think she was sentenced to the WEAVE program, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so the WEAVE program is a very intensive program. That's 30-some weeks, isn't it, Mr. Marana? 32 weeks?
Yes, 32 weeks, yes.
And we instead, out of really for courtesy for Miss Weston, thought that not requiring her to do that extensive program as long as she was going to counseling regularly. But the challenge we're running into is how often was she seeing her counselor? Do you know? Before September?
Before September, let's see here. Yeah, I don't have I have a sheet back in September, but it does not appear it has the times that she was attending as far as
frequency. I'm looking for
duration.
how many times a month was she going? Do we know? Miss Weston, how many times a month were you going prior to September?
So my therapist I was seeing once a week, and my psychiatrist I was seeing once a month.
So therapist once a week, and then psychiatrist once a month?
Yep. And that was mainly because they were changing my medication, and so I needed to see them a little bit more frequently. But my therapist now, Kayla, and I have discussed, my mental, I guess, well-being.
Yeah, I mean, that's the right way to say it.
Yeah. So we've discussed that, and now we're more of a maintenance. So yes, she had a family emergency, which did put her out for quite a few weeks, which was fine. We did check in via text messages with each other, just making sure that I was still doing okay and taking my medication and things. And then I can't remember what day it was, but it was a couple of weeks ago. We were supposed to meet again, and I actually had walking pneumonia for about 3 weeks, and I just was not feeling well. And so we decided to reschedule after the new year. So I am still seeing her. I do still take my medication. And I was seeing her once a week for a little over a year.
But it stopped in September.
I honestly don't know. If that's what she said, I would assume she's not lying. But I would have to go back and look.
Okay. So, Mr. Marana, what's the recommendation for today?
Probation at this time is recommending to continue supervision as previously ordered and re-engage with counseling sessions with Ms. Hutchinson as directed and to adjourn this review. I know this was kind of a early motion to review for a discharge, but seeing as the court pointed out, as far as having the WE program suspended and having the counseling being the primary source of the rehabilitation process to the supervision, I would be asking to adjourn just to get re-engaged with counseling.
Ms. Weston.
Okay, I'm sorry, that is insane. How many weeks is the WE program again? I'm sorry.
There's 32 weeks.
Okay, so for the last, let's see, August to September, so that's 13 months, I was seeing a counselor once a week. And from August of last year until roughly June, I was seeing a psychiatrist once a month. I've had my medication regulated. I take 2 different medications. I have seen her regularly. I have done everything on my probation, literally everything. I am now starting an internship. I can't be on probation. Like, literally, this is going to cost me. I mean, I'm what, 60,000 back now in student loans. If I don't start my internship on Monday, I can't start for a whole nother semester, which is not until fall, because then we have summer. So you're setting back my livelihood.
No, Mr. Weston. So let's make sure we walk through this accurately. Okay. This whole process. All right. We are here. We are going through this whole thing because of decisions that you made.
Well,
right?
I did enter a no contest due to protection of my kids and myself. So I understand I waived a right to a lot of things. I get that. And that is why I have followed everything. So the fact that I was sick and my counselor had a family emergency and then it was the holidays and now we're rescheduling for 2 weeks from now. So all of this effort and all of this work that I've put in since August of 2023, let alone my schooling, my grad schooling, the time that I've spent doing everything.
So
I cannot still be on probation and start my internship. I put this in writing to Mr. Morano. I don't understand why I would still be requested to be on probation when I have done everything needed.
So let's walk through this, because Ms. Weston, this is his recommendation. Ultimately, it's up to me, but you have to remember that again, you are receiving a tremendous benefit by getting a case dismissed. So this court is responsible. And if I would like to also point out that this was a deal that was also worked out with the prosecutor. All right, the prosecutor is the one that's moving to dismiss it. This wasn't a plea that was taken under 769-4A, where it's ultimately up to the court whether or not the case gets dismissed. There needs to be a completion satisfactory also to the prosecutor that made the deal as well, that you've completed all terms. Now, I would also point out, Ms. Weston, that if I recall correctly, Mr. Murata, we had a violation in May. So
that
it's not
was a misunderstanding, because I was told I couldn't test anywhere else. And then when we had our meeting, I have not had any. And the violation, I never tested positive for anything. Ever.
Ms. Weston. So this does cause me some concern that that the reaction here is to Mr. Morano's very reasonable recommendation. Now, whether the court follows it or not, the response is you're incredulous and defiant. It does cause me some concern whether or not the progress that I believed that we had made and was causing me to, consider your request. I didn't even have to set this for a review for today. Not at all. I could have just said, well, she's on a delayed sentence. Ms. Weston, you're not on probation. There are certain statutes that are out there now that say that individuals who are on probation are entitled to, certain reviews at certain points in time to consider early discharge. You're not on probation. You're on a delayed sentence. All right. Now, it looks and feels like a probation, but it's a delayed sentence, meaning that you're going to receive a benefit that many others don't receive at the end of their probation. Most people, when they finish probation, they don't get their case dismissed. A delayed sentence allows you that freedom so that you can get a case dismissed. Now, all of these things, all these different accommodations, these things that you're asking of, I'm willing to hear that. But I guess I'm a little frustrated that you can't at least see why there would be some concern that someone who was ordered to do counseling has not been in counseling for 90 days. And we're just recently hearing about this. So, Mr. Marana, did Miss Weston tell you before that you hadn't been she hadn't been in counseling for 90 days?
So looking back at our hearing worksheets, November the 4th, Ms. Weston indicates still attending, and then asking for proof, and then in September, still attending, and then PO advised we need proof, emailed PO, emailed counselor. Unfortunately, there were times where I was asking, I just didn't get that. And it appears why I think maybe Miss Weston was saying that is because there probably were standing appointments that were just canceled, because that's what Miss Hutchinson ultimately kind of indicated to me, that there were these busy times where just conflicts happened. So she did indicate at each one of her appointments that she was still attending, but I just don't know if that was kind of a deviation or just that there was these standing appointments that were just ultimately canceled at the end of it.
So I have been in contact with, I mean, she's my therapist. I've been in contact with her at least every month, if not a couple times a month, either via text message or via phone call, even if we didn't have a specific meeting together, which again, I don't have it in front of me the last time, but if she said September, then that's what I'm going to go with. And like I said, I mean, I am still doing everything that I am supposed to be doing. And because initially it was her family emergency, which took her out for quite some time, like 4 to 6 weeks. And just because she's out doesn't mean I'm not in therapy. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to counseling or that I'm just stopping everything.
So when is your next appointment scheduled with her?
Let me look. I mean, my internship literally starts on Monday, and that is why I'm full panic right now, because I'm being blindsided. January 13th.
Okay, so help me understand now, Ms. Weston. Help me understand, what is the conflict with your internship?
Okay, so the conflict with my internship is that it's my school and the place, which I don't really want to put on record.
No, don't worry,
Okay.
don't worry. I don't want you. You don't. Just help me understand what it is about that status that is.
So I have to pass a background check. So when I started my schooling, I had to complete a background check just to be in this program, which was fine. It wasn't a problem. And then that is part of the reason why my attorney and the prosecutors and why like the whole everything. That is why we did everything, was because I was told that this would be shown as dismissed, and that if it's shown as dismissed, I was also told that I don't have to put that I've been convicted, which that is, if I put that I'm convicted, I cannot start my internship. And I have to sign this paperwork before I start, which is Monday. And I
so wait a second.
this internship.
You've already been offered an intern. This is I guess this is where I'm confused. You've already been offered an internship, and they haven't done a background check on you yet?
Correct, because it's a agreement between my school, and so it's an agreement between my school and this counseling center. So they sign the paperwork, they get me onboarded. And the last step, which I told this to Mr. Moreno in October, was that I have to complete and pass a background check before I can start. My start date is Monday. I asked for a court date in December, which I wasn't given. And I understand you said you didn't even have to do this one, but I'm just pleading my case to you because I have done I completed everything by October so that it would give me enough time to meet with you and get it, closed, I guess. I don't really know the right term, but completed. And so that's why I completed all my terms and everything in October. Well, actually, I think it was the end of September. And I emailed Mr. Moreno and said I've done everything. And if that one program would have been only 32 weeks. I've done way more than 32 weeks of counseling, like way more, and probably have made way more progress than I would have in a group or whatever that other setting is.
I just
And
that's
that
the hard part for me is I just don't. I'm having a hard time understanding because I've not heard of a situation where they wouldn't have done a background check in advance.
Okay, so I did a background check when I started my program. That was a requirement to be accepted into the program. So I did already do one. I have to do a new one now that I'm starting my internship. That's just part of the requirement.
Do you have verification of any of these things, Mr. Marana? I don't want to put the locations on the record. I agree with Ms. Weston on that.
I
But
did forward him the email offering
Yes.
my internship to Mr. Morano, I think in October or November, whenever he asked for it. I
November.
forwarded
Yep.
it.
Yeah, I do have an email from an individual. Yes, I do have an email from this individual, and it looks like there is agreement. There is no date as far as like the starting of the internship, but it does look like there is a blurb in this email indicating that an offer for an internship position was offered to Miss Weston on, and I believe it's November 13th.
okay, so I want to see that. So Ms.
Okay.
Weston, hold on a second. Mr. Morano will bring that
Yep.
up to me. I'm going to handle a couple other cases, so just tread water for a minute. Mr. Paskulovich, you have something ready? Okay, recalling Amber Weston, 23-01-501.
Again, Your Honor, Marana Primi at the Police Department.
All right, Ms. Weston. All right, are you there? Okay, you just have to unmute. So let's walk through this. Okay, so
Sorry.
Miss Weston is requesting this court to consider her for an early discharge. And Mr. Murata has indicated that we are without counseling for the past 3 months. And there are good explanations for it, but it is something that the court anticipated that she would have complied with and completed would be that that level of counseling. Ms. Weston has brought up the fact that she has an internship starting soon that she has concerns about as it relates to her ability to keep that internship with this pending case hanging over her head, which is always a fair and valid concern because there are internships, there are job opportunities that are lost. I've seen it many times. So this is not a unfounded or outrageous concern. So I've got to come up with a plan here that takes into account the fact that there are aspects of this probation that the court or delayed sentence that the court would like to see Ms. Weston complete, but do so in a way that allows her the chance to keep this internship. So I think there's a way that I can do this, Ms. Weston, but let me see how we can
I
manage.
did go back and look, and I saw her September 28th, and then October is when she had her family emergency, which, like I said, that was 4 to 6 weeks, and then she contacted me November 7th. That was when she was back to work. So we were supposed to meet in November, the week before Thanksgiving, but then I ended up having to reschedule, and I don't know why it's not in my text message. And then we rescheduled for December 11th, but that's when I had the walking pneumonia. So we did text back and forth. So I know it wasn't a, sit down 30-minute session, but we did talk for about 15 minutes. And then, like I said, we're scheduled January 13th.
Okay. So, Mr. Paskulovich, I have a copy of the plea agreement. Now, I had sufficient concerns about the nature of the charges here that despite the fact that the agreement from the people was for 12 months, I had indicated that I wanted 18 months because of the concerns that I had. Now, I went back and looked, and Mr. Paskulovich, according to the plea agreement, the the people were expecting a minimum of 12 months. We're at 12 months now. And so, yes, there was an issue in May based on some missed tests in March and April, but I did sanction her for that. She had to do additional testing. And it's my understanding, Mr. Marana, that once we cleaned up that testing issue, there have been no issues with testing since then, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And Ms. Weston, I look at every aspect of probation. I don't just look at the fact that we've got this issue with counseling that we need to clean up. I don't ignore any of the good work that you've done. All right. So I'm not saying that you're here asking something outrageous of the court. All I'm saying is that you do have to acknowledge that this court has a responsibility to make sure that with the prosecutor's deal, with what's expected as a result of this event, that we have taken care of, and have held you accountable and have helped you rehabilitate so that you're in the best possible position to never be in front of a court again. So I have that responsibility. That's different, obviously, than your responsibility to yourself to try to improve yourself, to get into like we're not going to constantly be in line. All right. So I've got to walk through and make sure what you've done and what hasn't been done. And, if there's something that hasn't been done, what's the consequence for that? So walking through this, she has completed 42 out of 40 hours of community service. She's paid all of her fines and costs. She's had no assaultive, threatening behavior, no possession of any firearm or dangerous weapon. She's maintained employment. Since we had our issue in May, we have 7+ months of successful, compliant alcohol testing. Correct, Mr. Marana?
Yes, Your Honor. The only other thing with the testing, that there was a time where she did travel. She was supposed to get a SoberLink device. The referral got late. She went on her trip, and then she came back early on that trip, had COVID, so couldn't test for a brief period when she got back. But I did bring this up to the court, and on August 20th, we did indicate that she can test after she was okay with COVID. So I did bring that up to the court back in August, but that was the only kind of, I guess, hiccup, if you will, regarding the testing. Outside of that, she's been compliant with her testing.
Okay. All right. So really what we're talking about now, that last final piece of the puzzle, is this gap, which there are reasonable explanations, but there's a gap nonetheless that we have to try to figure out how to cover and manage, because Ms. Weston, to be fair, if you're moving into a new position, there are different stressors, there are different challenges that come with that. And I do want to make sure that you're continuing to stay engaged with counseling, because
that's not going to stop for me.
I understand that. But so Ms. Weston, that's a key component of all of this. So I actually think there is a way, having done this for a while, where we're both sides can be I think satisfied with the ultimate outcome, both the community, the prosecutor, the probation department, and the court, and Ms. Weston. And so here's how this works, Ms. Weston. That final piece, you owe me 3 months of good, solid counseling. Mr. Murata's recommendation is not outrageous. All right, it's fair. But if we kept her on probation, it is also fair that is a risk, because I looked at her criminal record, and right now it still would maintain that she's on a delayed sentence, and someone could read that, and that would be a problem for Ms. Weston. It's there. It's quite different than seeing a dismissal. Okay, and so her concerns on this are not unfounded. But I can, and I'm willing to do this, Ms. Weston, but this only works if you follow through, because if you don't, this status that I will give you, you can lose it. All right. And so what the court's going to do is, as of today, Mr. Marana, I'm going to do basically your recommendation in a world that works with Ms. Weston's obvious issues. Okay, with employment. I'll discharge her with improvement and dismiss it with 771. Today's 12 months, Mr. Peskovich. Today's 12 months. All right. So the 12-month agreement has been, as long as the counseling piece is done, is satisfied. So this discharge, this dismissal is contingent. All right. it only becomes fixed and firm if you go to once a month counseling and get at minimum once a month counseling, which sounds like you're already going to do anyway, and get proof to that to Mr. Marana by April 4th of 2025. So like if someone runs your record, you are discharged as of today. All right. The case is dismissed as of today. But if we don't get those pieces, all right, this case gets reinstated. You go back on probation. It goes back on your record.
Okay,
So you can legitimately say, as of today, it's dismissed. But you have a final piece that you have to follow through on. What Mr. Marana is asking for is appropriate, is necessary. I have to have it. Okay. You can't give me 3 months of counseling in 24 hours. Okay.
No.
If this is on your record, you probably will lose that internship. I don't disagree with you on that. Okay. So I can legitimately discharge you with sort of a trap door there. If you don't give us those 3 months, we'll issue a show cause. You'll come back in here and the court reserves the right to put you back on delayed sentence and put this back on your record. So Ms. Weston, you're going to have to follow through on what Mr. Marana recommended, because I do think that's the final piece of the puzzle. The only other caveat to that is that if there's any new criminal charges in the next 3 months, that's also something that would cause this all to go back in play. So drug testing, all that, alcohol testing, all that's done. You don't have to report to Mr. Marana anymore. You are, for all intents and purposes, off of probation today, as long as in the next 3 months you keep doing the counseling you just told me you were going to do anyway, and you don't pick up any new criminal offenses. Mr. Paskulovich, I feel as if that is, it really covers us for those last 3 months, because to be fair to Ms. Weston, there were things outside of her control regarding her counselor, and that's fine. All right. And I can acknowledge that. All right. But Ms. Weston, I hope you can also see there was still tasks that needed to be done. And I have made special accommodation here for you, Ms. Weston. So by April 4th, that's the first Friday. That's the first Friday in April. Okay. So go to counseling in January and February and March, get that stuff to Mr. Marana, no new criminal offenses. And then what we do today stays. Because what's happening today is discharge dismissal. You do those things, it stays. You remain in that status forever. If we don't hear from you by April 4th, or you pick up a new criminal charge, bringing you back in here, and this glorious opportunity, Ms. Weston, is gone. Okay. All right?
Thank you.
You have to continue to work on that, Ms. Weston. Obviously, even today should show you that, yes, there has been great progress. You have made some significant improvements, but there are still gaps. And with the things that you're trying to do in life, the internships that you have, the goals that you have, I do think you could, especially with you know what you've battled and what you've tried to maintain, you could have a lot of credibility when you work with somebody, because you've been where they've been and you've done what they've done, but and you've worked through, and you can show them there's a path out. But what you also need to do is say, listen, I don't have it all figured out yet. I still have to, I hope on January 13th, you talk with your counselor about how you reacted today. So that was still, it should still be evidence to you that there's work that needs to be done. Okay. It doesn't mean that there hasn't been things that have been accomplished, but hearing news that you disagree with, all right. You know, having sort of things that are time sensitive that could be affected. All right. That's still triggering moments for you. So let's keep working on that so that you can gain the long-term sustainable progress that I think you want.
Okay.
All right. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So Mr. Marana, I thought that was a fair recommendation on your end. I just think that if we tweak it just the right way, then Ms. Weston can still be protected with her opportunity. All right, so Mr. Marana, if you could prepare that for me today, I'll even have it signed today, Ms. Weston. It will say that you're discharged today with improvement and dismissed pursuant to 771.1. And I've put the contingencies for us. And so you're not reporting anymore. So like I said, this status, you're off probation. I'm just going to open up this file. Mr. Marana is going to say on the 4th, I got this information. She has been going to counseling and she hasn't committed new criminal offenses. The nice thing at that point in time is I just close the file back up again. All right. Okay.
Okay. So it won't show at all that I have this extra, like, I don't know what shows
No,
on.
no. So this
Okay.
little, this extra thing, this is not,
Mhm.
you're not on probation. It is it's basically it's a condition attached to my action today. My
Okay.
action to, and frankly, the only thing that comes from this is it will be reported as a discharge dismissal. That's how the reporting is. For us internally, we have this sort of second review that we're going to have. Okay. And so, and frankly, if you get that information to him before April 4th, we don't even like Ms. Weston, just so you know, the only, I guess the best way to describe it is the only thing that would be problematic is if I, in fact, set it for another hearing. I'm not even setting it for another hearing. Because if I set it for another hearing, if someone looked up your name, they could say, hey, what's she got another hearing for? Okay. I'm not setting it for a hearing. Mr. Marana is going to come up to me on April 4th and say, Judge, we have what we need. And then I just close it out.
Okay.
All right.
I understand.
All right. So see, Ms. Weston, you just wait. All right. Take all the information in. All right. Make sure that before you respond, just make sure you have all the facts, all the information. Okay. All right. Because there, the frustrating part for me, Ms. Weston, is the whole time that we've been together, this court had missed tests. I didn't throw you in jail. We made the corrections and we moved forward. We had that thing that went down during travel. Did I drag you in for a violation? No, we made the adjustments and we moved forward. My business is people. And so I have to deal with each particular person differently. And I knew in your situation, one of the things we needed to do was continue you moving forward in your mental health in the right way. And so just do me that favor. January 13th, when you meet with your counselor, talk about like, all right, I didn't respond immediately the way I wanted to. How can we work through this in the future? Because I won't be the first person delivering you bad news, Ms. Weston. All right, you're going to have that happen again. All right. Good luck, Ms. Weston. And my hope is that I won't see you again. I'll just close this file up after I see Mr. Moran on the 4th. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Be safe, be well, sleep sweet, and much love.